If the Constitution is the law of the land, that means that the social contract, not, the president or the executive or the courts or the Congress or, my opinion of what I want America to be, or my opinion of the social contract, what it means, or my opinion of what the founding fathers wanted, because their opinion doesn't matter against the Constitution. Because if the Constitution is supreme, then it is the text within those provisions, right? And now, reality, if that is supreme, then wouldn't it be true that since everything that we have is in branching from this constitutional supremacy, that authority, which means that the Constitution is not equivalent to, the president or the government. So you can resist the government without resisting the Constitution, right? In this reality, would it be true? And yes, it is true that treason against the government is not necessarily within American foundations treason against the very entity that is heading the governance, but treason against the type of constitutional government that the Constitution authorizes, right? So ultimately, we cannot overthrow a constitutional order, right? That is ultimately what not overthrowing a lawful government means. What does that mean? That we can defend constitutional legitimacy against an unconstitutional government. And that's even when it is legitimized through the various avenues. The question becomes, how do we accelerate the judicial opinion that forces exhaustion of the courts? Because if wherever law ends, tyranny begins, then we have to accelerate that end where the judiciary is forced to actually take on judicial opinions of whether or not they are on the side of constitutional supremacy or not, which allows for states to have much more resolve outside of constitutional norms. You know what I mean? And that reality, our pressures from a state level has to be with that. And this includes things not just like traditional forms of protest, but actually disrupting, right? Things like the Oxnard protests, where they stopped people from getting kidnapped to the extent that they would have been if they didn't. Things that historically we've touched upon when it comes to protests, such as stopping activity at the ports, disruptions of the economy to force our state governor to actually be urgent in his response and offense against the executive, right? This is what? Non cooperation, so that we can force the legislative and judicial hand so that we can gain clarity into what our next steps can be, and that involves exhausting congressional resolve, but also judicial opinion. Because if the Constitution is the law of the land, then we all have to agree to position that above even the rewriting of truth and memory and laws and regulations that this government is positioning. Because even if the executive conducts policymaking, that cannot be against the constitutionality and the fact that that's capable of being a truth. That means that the state government and civilians, citizens, have the constitutional duty to defend the constitutional borders, right?